Hey, what's up, everybody? Brian Dean here. Welcome to Small Business Big Results, a show where we share stories from small business owners and fast-growing startups. I'm your host, Brian Dean, and today I have Mike King with me. Mike is the founder and managing director of iPullRank and has an extensive background in software and web development. He's coordinated the efforts of creative, strategy, technical, and paid media teams to achieve solutions in harmony with long-term client campaign goals for several Fortune 500 companies. I'm really looking forward to getting Mike's input on today's topic since he comes from the agency side of things. We're going to dive into what strategies look like when you outsource your digital marketing and how it can benefit your small business. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So excited to have you on today because this question I get all the time is like, I want to outsource my marketing, but I don't know how. Should I do it in-house? So I know this is the ultimate it depends question. But which is like, this whole episode could just be called episode 10, it depends. But I want to kind of see your perspective on what it depends on when someone should outsource their digital marketing or someone should try to do it in-house.
Yeah. So I think it depends on, frankly, just the strength of the team and then also their capabilities to be consistent. Because one of the bigger things with, marketing is like a lot of people can do their isolated incidents and then they get busy and they go work on other things. And then, they kind of like, oh, why aren't we getting leads? Or there may be this big pop-in activity that generates a bunch of leads and they get so busy like managing all of that. And then, they go through that whole process and then they're like, okay, well, our leads dried up. And so one of the bigger things about, outsourcing it is that you can then allow those folks to, continue to build on it while you're focused on other things. And it also may be, it might just be like a skill gap, right? Like, let's say, your team is really great at paid media, but they're not good at SEO or vice versa. That's when it makes a lot of sense to, bolster that skill set by having a group that you can leverage to really run with that. And even if you're ultimately looking to build in-house, it takes a while to find the right person and you need to get the results going as quick as possible. And so, it's often about like, how do you offset what's going on in-house? Because at the end of the day, like the people in-house are going to know more about the business than anyone that's external. But at the same time, there will be people that are better at whatever the channel is than you might have in-house.
Yeah, that's a great answer and so insightful because it depends on, some people just say it depends on blah, blah, blah. But like you said, at the end of the day, it depends on what you can do versus can't do. And if you can't do it, like you mentioned, you could hire for it, but it's a huge process versus literally, let's go, hire someone, next day they can get started. So say someone decides to outsource their marketing. What are some mistakes you've seen people make when they attempt to outsource their marketing?
Being super hands-off and also not having the right internal resources to make it work. So as an example, let's just talk about SEO as an example, right? If you don't have engineering resources in-house and you don't hire an agency that also has engineering resources, you can't expect that SEO is suddenly just going to be fixed, right? Like you still need someone in-house that does that engineering work because you're only going to get like recommendations from a typical SEO agency. However, if you understand that you don't have those resources, then, you can also add that to the scope for certain SEO agencies. Like not all SEO agencies do that sort of implementation work. And then on the hands-off side, again, it's this expectation that, okay, these people will just do it for us. But again, because the expertise around the business or the space may not be there, you still need to be that checks and balances on what it is that agency is doing. And then there's also the possibility that you just may not be ready for it. So as an example, a lot of startups often will try to use SEO, but they haven't figured out their product market fit yet, or they, don't want to do content. And they're like, yeah, so just do SEO. It's like, no, all SEO is giving visibility to content. So you've got to have a content aspect to this. So you've got to just be clear because, in a lot of cases, and again, I'm just using SEO as the example, as in a lot of cases, you may want to focus on other channels rather than the channel you thought you need it. And I see a lot of, e-commerce businesses make this mistake as well, because they're like, oh, we want free traffic. No, you should focus on paid search or like paid Facebook or whatever first, because, that's more predictable. It acts quicker and so on. And so a lot of folks may not be ready for the channel they think they're in, or they think they need. And they may not understand their marketing mix that they should be going after.
Yeah, good stuff there. So back to so when someone's ready to make this hire, I'm going to push back a little bit what you said in your first answer, which is if you don't have that expertise, you don't have that skill set, you should outsource it. The downside of that I've found from a lot of experience is that if you don't know anything about something, you can get burned. So can you speak to that? Is there a certain element of at least learning about the space? Like if you let's say TikTok, should you start making TikTok videos just a little bit to get a hang of the platform? So then when you hire someone, they're not fleecing you and saying, oh, you got 20 views. That's really good for TikTok. And you're like, okay, I don't know any better. Is that something that you recommend, or do you think people can just kind of trust?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think anyone in any space that they're going into, they should do some research to understand the general lay of the land first. I don't know why it's popping into my mind, but I remember I read a story about Elon Musk and how he wanted to start SpaceX, and then he just started reading up on rocket science and all this. And that makes sense to me. If I suddenly wanted to be someone in rocket science, I'm going to read all the books I can get my hands on, so I know the base level questions to ask, so I can then, kind of weed out the people that just don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. And anytime that I've hired people, to support our work, whether it's let's say we need, a video created or something like that, I always do that first level of research. Okay, how does this generally work? What does the process look like? And, that's where a lot of the marketing work we do comes in, right? You're using that content as an opportunity to teach someone how to think about something. And, doing that research, because all that stuff is available, is just so valuable, so you can understand what you need to be getting yourself into and who you need to be selecting.
Yeah. Speaking of this, perfect transition to my next question, Mike, which is who you need to be selecting. So you're okay, I'm going to start doing TikTok ads. Mm-hmm. We don't know anything about it in-house. We want to outsource it. We read up on it. We're running a campaign right now, $5 a day just to test it out. We're ready to hire. What are some things small business owners should look for that are, before we get to the red flags, green check marks? What are some things that someone looks at in agencies that they seem like a good fit?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is case studies. Also looking at their thought leadership, again, what sort of content are they making to educate people? Because in most of these spaces, there are not that many secrets, right? You're a great example of this. The stuff you did with Backlinko, you're cool, let's make this clear to people so they can understand what you need to be doing for SEO, and separate the stuff that isn't real from what is real. And so in that same token, that's what you should be looking for. You should be looking for people who are very forthcoming about how they do things, what they've done, in cases where it's possible, who they've worked with. A lot of, organizations do the whole NDA thing, so you can't put logos on your site or what have you. But nevertheless, the people that have that level of a relationship with their clients and are able to put that out, that says something. I wouldn't be the person to say hey, look at what they're doing on TikTok, or look at what they're doing on, these things, because that doesn't necessarily reflect what they would do for you. Also, it's not an indication of whether or not, they have a skill in it, because they may not have the time to do that for themselves. But I would definitely say the case studies. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because I've had people come to us and they're like, oh, you don't rank number one for SEO agency. Well, yeah, there was a time that we did, and those leads were trash. Yeah. And so there's no reason to, focus on that. But nevertheless, I think it really comes down to the case studies and the thought leadership. That's the first two things that I would look for. And also them being forthcoming about their processes as early as their websites.
Oh, really? So before you even talk to them, they should have it on their website. Here's how we operate.
Yeah. Like, so here's an example, right? Like you said, I do music, and I was looking for a service that could help me get my streams up, right? Because, that's the name of the game at this point. And most of the sites that were out there were like, yeah, you can just buy 1 million Spotify streams. Just give us our credit card and you'll have them. And it's like no indication of, hey, is this okay? Is this allowed? How do you do it? It's just like, give me the money and you'll see the results, right? And then I came across this site that walked through everything, like step by step. It was like, here's what we do. Here's why the services that you found before us don't make any sense. Here's our approach. Our approach is really like, we find you, different playlists to get you on that we know are real based on this methodology. And it had the giant squeeze page that walked through everything. And then once I ultimately signed up, they had a whole section of education on the site. Like, here's what this looks like. Here's what to expect. That's what you want. You want something that's just really clear and helps you understand like what you're getting yourself into. And there's no reason that a service provider can't provide that, because again, at the end of the day, a lot of us are doing the same things. We may have our own spin on it or like a nuance that makes it a little better, but there's no reason, there's no special sauce that they're hiding from you, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's something to keep in mind for anyone watching this. As you go out into the wild and start to evaluate agencies, the secret is basically expertise and hard work. That's what you're outsourcing. There's no secret loophole, strategy, whatever that's working. And if there is, it usually closes within like days now. So you really you want someone who's going to put in the work and is going to help accelerate what you're already doing, get you there faster. For example, in my case, I've been looking for a Facebook ads agency, and I always go through the same sort of process. I'm like, oh, we need to start doing Facebook ads. And then I hire an agency and I realize they're like throwing all this jargon at me, ROAS and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff is, but it's a red flag that they can't just say in like layman's terms, which is what I am, how to do it. Like, here's what we do. And I'd be we create ads that like for this targeting, it's possible to dumb this stuff down. And if they're not, that's usually a red flag, because then you're going to communicate with this person or this agency for potentially months or years. You want to know that they can communicate, which is an important skill. Now, one thing I was curious to hear your take on is, do you think industry expertise is important, or is it okay if they've never worked in that industry before?
Yeah, I don't think that's a requirement at all. Because if you go to someone who's like, oh, we've niched down to your space. Well, if that's what you want, you just want the same strategy that's cookie cutter that they use for everyone in your space. And fundamentally, marketing is about what? It's about standing out. So you don't want someone who's just going to give you the same thing they gave your competitors. And where there may be value for those sorts of things is when there's like specific technology for the space. But again, I don't think that's a requirement either, because, all that stuff can be learned by your agency. And again, you being the expert for your space, you should be directing these folks. So it doesn't mean much if they've like done this before, because you can tell them like, here are the gotchas for our space.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. And sometimes it can even be beneficial to have someone that sees your space from an outside perspective. For my current project, Exploding Topics, I recently hired a content marketing agency to help me write some content. And they found a bunch of keywords that have just been like completely, I would never saw them, or they're in Semrush and I just overlooked them, and they presented them to me. I was like, man, these are really good. And they've never worked in like trend, even SaaS before. They just were common sense. Like, here's things that people are probably searching for. As it turns out, they are. And I'm glad that they didn't have experience in the space, because they might just be like, yeah, we know what to do. And
exactly. Whatever. Like, what's the purpose of a second set of eyes if they see the same things that you do? Yeah.
No, that's why I wanted to ask, because I was curious to hear your take on that. I thought I didn't know what you said. I thought maybe you said the opposite. So, but I 100% agree with what you're saying. So when it comes to like channels, you got SEO, PPC, social media, organics, email. What are some of the best, in your opinion? It's okay if this is it depends answer. Are the best to outsource versus do in-house, if any?
Yeah, I think really it's search and social media are the ones that I would outsource. Okay. Because email, you've got to. I really believe, and I think again you're an example of this. Like, building up your list yourself and like having intimate knowledge of the people on the list and what resonates with them is something that is best done in-house. Whereas search and social media, I mean, those are like kind of what you see is what you get channels, right? Like you can see the reaction in the wild for search. You can see it in social media as well. And it's very easy to like research that up and get it done. But I think email is a more like intimate relationship that you have with your customer base. That's my answer.
That's true, man. And with email, it's also simpler. Like, let's face it, anyone can go in and write an email and click send. Not to say it's perfect or it's even going to be good, but if you don't know anything about SEO and you want to rank for competitive keywords, good luck just like doing that. Like, you're not just going to have like a divine intervention come in and teach you how to do it in one day. But you can write an email in one day and hit send and, whatever email service provider you use. So is another reason to channel. And the same, like I said, and you're not getting feedback, like you said, with email, it's anti-social media. You're sending it out. I mean, you will get replies, but those are usually crazy people anyway. They're like, unsubscribe, I never subscribed to this. And back when I first started Backlinko, I was crazy. I used to look it up like in Aweber and have a screenshot of like when they signed up, they double opted in and everything. So like, yes, you did sign up. Obviously, I stopped doing that when I hit like 200,000 subscribers, but it was like a little hobby of mine to reply to those people. But that's here nor there. So when someone does, they find agency seems like a good fit, hires them, signs a contract. What are some things that they should be looking for in terms of sharing metrics? The exact metrics will depend on what they're doing, but obviously Semrush or Google Analytics or something. But what are some metrics that you think are important for an agency to share?
I hate to say it, but it depends. What sort of site, what sort of business are you in? Fundamentally, you should be sharing the analytics, period, right? Like, because it's often that people don't want to share analytics with an agency, but like you need that feedback loop to be there so that they can optimize what they're doing for you, right? And then everything else is more like on the business intelligence level, like what is it you're trying to do? Are you trying to get leads? Okay, again, we need that feedback loop to indicate whether or not the leads we're getting you are of quality. And so if you have like a follow-up call that happens and then your people are marking, this was a good lead, this was a bad lead, cool, give us that information. If it's sales, like if you're an e-commerce site, again, we need that feedback loop. How many of those orders that come in through whatever channels we're active in are returns or people that are complaining, things like that. If you're more like a media publisher site or what have you, cool, like what content is resonating with your advertisers, and so we can make sure that we are doubling down on that in whatever channels we're in so we can help you make more money. So whatever measures you have internally that drive your business, give some visibility into that so that your agency can use that to inform what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, it's a really good insight there, Mike, because I was like, obviously the agency should share metrics, but almost the other direction is as important. Like you said, like it's a two-way street. It's not just about getting a report every month, opening it up, saying, okay, not bad, delete. It's a collaboration, and the more you can give them, if they're a good agency, the more they can run with it. So if you send someone like, all these leads we got were like garbage, or they came from a country we don't serve or whatever, then hopefully the agency will be like, okay, we'll change course now and we'll do something else.
Absolutely.
And that can only happen if you share it with them. Otherwise, the metrics in and of themselves might look great. Double leads, double blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's about business. And like you said, you as a business owner have those metrics, and you can share them with the agency. They're going to get better results for you. So in terms of, let's say someone wants to do a hybrid model where they have some stuff in-house, they outsource some other things, how should they sort of look at a high level, distributing the budget between the two?
That needs to be ROI driven. So, where do we think we're going to get the most value, right? Like, so again, if we're saying like, okay, we're good at email, we're good at, content marketing, but we're not good at, paid media at all, right? And so we know that what we're going to get from content marketing and email, like that's fixed. There's no incremental that we're expecting from that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas we expect that there are incremental gains if we start doing paid media. Cool. So let's leave the budget that we already have on the things that we're good at, and let's play around with the budget for the things we're not good at, right? Like, so maybe we take 20% of our overarching budget, throw it at some things that we're not good at, see how that goes. And then, 2 quarters go by, did that work? Okay, ramp it up. And it just has to be completely tied to what is it going to get you as a business. But you've also got to start from a perspective of, okay, here's what we're projecting, and here's what it's going to take in order for us to meet that projection. So frankly, I don't want to call it a stab in the dark, but you've got to plant a flag to some degree, try that out and scale up or scale down based on how well it's going. However, if ultimately you find hey, I found this agency, they're great, they're doing really well with the budget that we've got, but it's not growing in the way that we expected. Okay, let's put some more on the things that we know work and figure out ways that we can grow the ROI from those channels as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. At the end of the day, the best marketing advice I ever heard was double down on what works. When you're trying stuff, you're going to find some things that are just surprisingly good. Wow, what? That worked, and it works so well. And it's your job to double down that stuff. But at the end of the day, you're going to go to the well one too many times eventually. And you're going to get, as you said, incremental improvements. And that's where you can set aside some of your marketing budget and put it towards these sort of experiments, really. And you can hire an agency or do it yourself a little bit and see how it goes. And then if you find something that works, which is not easy, then you can double down, triple down, 10x it or whatever. So yeah, that's my last question about outsourcing. We'll just jump right into the rapid fire questions now. All right, Mike. So now it's time for the rapid fire questions. In this round, I'm going to ask questions in a rapid fire style. You can just say the first thing that comes to your head. And if there's a question you don't want to answer for whatever reason, just say pass and we'll move on to the next one, just like a game show. So the first question is there anything new that you're sort of nerding out on right now?
All large language model stuff. So things like GPT-3 and all of that stuff. There's just so much to play with in that space right now.
Cool. And when do you typically start your day? Morning or late?
I wake up at 6:30 in the morning.
And if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
That's too hard. Pass.
Okay. What was your first job back in the day?
First thing I ever got paid money for was to write CGI script tutorials because I kept hacking this website and the guy was like, hey, can you stop hacking me? I'll pay you to do something. After that, it was a high school internship at Microsoft.
Oh, that's cool. Was there a movie, book, or TV show that sort of changed the direction of your life?
I can't think of what it is, but there definitely is one. Pass.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Neither.
What is your that's a first for this question, by the way? What is your go-to snack?
Tortilla chips.
Okay.
Why is this so hard?
I know you're answering these super hard marketing questions. No problem. Snacks is I can't do it. If you could learn any language, what would it be?
Japanese.
Cool. Is there something you wish you knew when you were 20?
How easy it was to make money on the internet.
Me too. At what time of day do you get your best work done?
Anytime from 3 p.m. onward.
Interesting. Cool. All right, Mike, that concludes our interview. Thanks so much for coming on. So many knowledge bombs, so much wealth of experience that you shared. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
So that's all for this episode of Small Business, Big Results. Head over to this video right here for the next episode in the series, where I'll be chatting with Julia McCoy about the coveted work-life balance and how small businesses can work less and earn more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.